Hey y'all, Flipper Fred here. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you have been in the knife world for any length of time, then you will pretty readily recognize this as the CRK Umnumzaan. The word Umnumzaan in the Zulu language means the boss. That's what this knife was meant to be, is the big boss. I got this on AliExpress for $49.84. This is obviously a clone knockoff edition. There are a few differences from the original version. We're going to take a deeper look at those here in just a minute. Spoiler alert, I love this knife. Wasn't sure about it when I first got it, but the more I have used it, I find myself picking this one up to drop in my pocket anytime I know I'm going to be doing some activities that might require a little harder cutting, maybe a little more heavy duty of a situation. I just have a lot of confidence in this thing right now. So let's dive in and take a closer look. Before we get started, if you would please down below here, please hit that subscribe and notification bell. That really helps the little guys like me get found on the YouTubes. And if you need to bail out early, if you could throw your boy Fred a thumbs up on the way out, again, I really appreciate that. That does really help us out. So thanks so much for doing that. Let's take a closer look at the box that it came in. This is interesting. This is clearly an older box. It has the smell of an older box. Reminds me of my grandfather from the 1970s. He used to fly in from Ireland to visit with us, and he always had this luggage that was made of leather that had this old kind of musty leather smell to it. So obviously inside the box it comes with a leather slip. However, this is absolutely hilarious. I hope you can read this on the screen. So what this is supposed to say, if you read the bottom here, it's supposed to say think twice, but the E is missing, and cut once. Well, this says gut once. So I'm not sure if that's really the saying that you want to have carrying around your knife in. But there you go. I find that to be absolutely hilarious. I'm obviously not using the slip. I just keep it in the box. Otherwise, in the box, you got some warranty, paperwork type stuff, a little bit of caution. Got your guarantee. This is interesting. They did try to knock off, a handwritten note on here. This is obviously written, though, for the Sebenza. Guess they just put any Chris Reeve knife into this box with the Sebenza tag. And interesting, again, 2013. So either just the paperwork has been around since 2013 and they just made a ton of these and kept them laying around for that long, or maybe this knife is from 2013. I don't think they made the Umnumzaan back in 2013, though. Otherwise, in here, interestingly, is from Crucible about the S35VN, just the specs on the steel. Nothing else really of note in the box other than the plastic it came in. So I thought that was quite interesting how they boxed it up. All right, let's take a look at some size comps. You know, this is what I would call a full-size knife. I wear a size large in a glove, but on video, I know this can always still be hard to figure out. So I'm going to put it next to the PM2 and the Para 3. You can see it is quite a bit bigger. I'm lining them up here than the Para 3. Very similar, very close to the Para 2, but even larger yet than the Para 2. If you're a Benchmade fan, you will recognize the full-size Crooked River and the Benchmade Bug Out. Trying to get those lined up. You can see it fits right in the middle between all three of those. So hopefully that'll give you a little bit of a sense on that. Let's pull up the specs real quick. I'm just going to kind of breeze through these. You can see that the green check marks mean everything basically lines up almost identical to the original. The blade thickness came in just a hair, talking 1/100th of an inch wider. Couldn't find actual handle thickness, like the full handle width. Mine comes in right at a 1/2 inch, but I couldn't find any specs online for anybody else who's really measured that. Looked at a few different review sites. Otherwise, same blade finish, grind, scales. These are full-blown titanium. The original comes in Magna Cut steel. Have no idea what this one is, although I've seen some others on AliExpress that are telling us that they're using VG10 steel instead of Magna Cut on their versions at the same price. So maybe that's what we get. If so, I'd be really thrilled with that. The weight comes in just a little bit heavier, 5.24 ounces versus 5.0. That could be the difference in the steel. It could be the titanium liners or scales are just a little bit thicker. All that could contribute to it. This is a Reeve integral lock that has a little extra twist on it. We'll talk about that in just a minute. The Reeve integral lock is what is now known as the frame lock. You can see this has the exact same thing. The real version of this knife comes in at $500 when you can get one. And again, I paid just under $50 for mine. The other thing I like to note is the blade thickness behind the edge. So this is a really strange hollow grind in that you can literally feel it widening back out as you get towards the tip. So it's scooped out and then it scoops back up towards the finished edge here. That lends to a little bit of a thicker sharpened edge. However, the idea behind that was as you sharpen it and grind it down, it's going to get thinner and thinner and thinner again before you reach the middle, lowest, thinnest spot in this blade. So very interesting. Mine comes in 26 one-thousandths of an inch. It's not particularly slicey, but this knife is really made for hard work and not too much in sliciness. We'll take a look at some cut tests here in just a minute. All right, put that away. Let's talk about the scales. So these are full, what they call sandblasted titanium. These are, in fact, real titanium. Even the pocket clip is real titanium. That does not hold to a magnet at all. So very happy with that. We're going to take a closer look at those in a minute. One of the things that you can tell the difference on in this knife versus the others, and this is going to be hard to see in this light. Maybe I'll pull up a photo. The word Idaho made doesn't match the original. I'm kind of okay with that because that helps buyers who may want to buy one of these not get fooled if they see this version of Idaho made compared to the real one. So that's one big difference there. The hardware on this is pretty true to the original. You got T15 for the pivot screws. The Umnumzaans are known for their heavy-duty, thicker, stronger pivots, and this is no difference from that. And T8 for the back clip, or for the back screw and the pocket clip here. The pocket clip on this thing is a little bit different from the original. You can see this one rides 50-50 between the lock bar and the handles, whereas in the original, 100% of that clip rides on the lock bar. I actually prefer this way. To me, that's kind of an upgrade to it. That makes it easier when you have to really grip the clip to flip it in and out. That means you're not putting quite as much pressure on that lock bar to that you'd have to overcome. As you can see, this is very smooth and flippy. We're going to talk about the reason behind that in just a minute. The pocket clip is obviously not deep carry. As I mentioned, it's titanium. I think this one is done just about perfectly. The lip is just high enough to easily clear any kind of pants. Because they have not continued this pattern past the beginning of the pocket clip, this thing will not tear up your pants like some other knives tend to do. This is a right side carry or right hand carry only. There is no ability to flip that pocket clip to the other side. It does ride inside a little milled out pocket there. All of that is 100% true to the original. The lanyard also is very true to the original. It came with the knife. It is the same look, feel, style, shape, twist as you get with the original, so that one's kind of cool. Mentioned the Reeve integral lock, which is the frame lock. The difference, the twist that I mentioned on this is that the detent ball, which rides typically on the inside of that lock bar, rides in the corner of the lock bar. I'll bring up a zoomed in picture of this so you can maybe see that a little bit better. What that means is that instead of the titanium lock bar riding on the steel blade tang, it's that ceramic ball that is now interfacing with the blade tang. That means a couple of things. One, absolutely no lock stick because it's a ceramic ball against steel, which is just like the detent. So there's no lock stick on this, which is a beautiful thing. And it's also a more wear resistant. You know, you're not having titanium wear on steel. In case you were concerned, you can bang this thing as hard as you want. It is absolutely locked up tight and not going to break free. I've even done this on the carpeted floor, whacked it as hard as I could. This thing is solid on the lockup. No worries with that. I'll give you a tip on this. So you can see the lock bar here is extended beyond the right side of the frame here. I'm going to give you a tip that I learned. Instead of always trying to use the tip of your thumb to push that out of the way, which certainly works just fine, that's a little pointy. If you use like the side of your thumb, like the meat on the side of your thumb to push that lock bar out, again, because it's on a ceramic ball, there's really no lock stick. And so using the side of your thumb to grab that and push it away is kind of what the pros do. So that's a nice little tip I thought I'd share with you. The over travel stop is another difference and departure from the original. This one kind of looks like a sticker, basically, that they've stuck onto this little tab here. In the original, it is kind of embossed or really recessed, kind of carved out inside there. So that's, again, another little tip off between the pocket clip, the over travel stop, the Idaho made. That should be enough to tip most people off that you're dealing with a fake and not hopefully get fooled into paying, $500 for this. talk about the blade. The blade is a beautiful harpoon drop point. It's got 2 harpoons on it, so you've got one here for your thumb, excellent for very strong push cuts. You've got one extended out there in case you want to do some draw cuts, fits that fingertip right there. It is a bit of a stretch. I don't have particularly long fingers, and to keep my finger back here away from the blade, I can hardly reach that tip. So, it is what it is, just worth mentioning. The jimping on the back of the blade is another area that's a little bit different. This is pretty big, wide jimping compared to what you find on the original. However, this is done really well. It's just sharp enough that it actually gives you really solid traction into that jimping. Another area of this knife, which is very true to the original, are the thumb studs. They have these nitrile rubber O-rings around them. The thumb studs on the Umnumzaan serve as your stop pins on both sides. Makes for a nice, very solid lockup. There's absolutely no blade play up, down, left, right, but it also makes the knife close a little softer, doesn't quite bang as hard with metal on metal, also reduces the wear on the titanium frame here versus having, steel, which is stronger than titanium, constantly pounding into that titanium. It would wear it away over time and cause for potentially a looser lockup. So that was an interesting thing that they've done on here. The other thing, major difference that you probably have already figured out is that the typical Umnumzaan doesn't open and drop shut just as smoothly as this one. This is running on double row ceramic bearings. I'll drop in a picture. I took it apart to show you what those look like. So that to me is a significant upgrade. These are nice bearings, y'all, instead of what normally would be kind of slotted bronze, phosphor bronze washers. The little slots were intended to hold the grease in there to keep it as smooth as possible on those phosphor bronze washers. Well, this is on this double row ceramic bearings. That makes this thing very smooth and drop shutty. I prefer that. To me, that makes this knife a lot more fidget friendly. I do like that. And so that was another, in my opinion, upgrade, but departure from the original. This also has the glass breaker tip on here, which is just part of the steel of the blade. Not sure why they thought they really needed to do that, but it doesn't get in the way. You won't ever feel it in any way, shape, or form when you're using or grabbing or holding the knife in any way. So an interesting choice of designs, but so be it. Either way, yeehaw for that. Again, as I mentioned, no play, up, down, left, right, no pivot lash, no detent lash. The detent on this is actually a little soft, if I'm being honest. There's not a ton, and that may be a factor of, again, the detent ball being on the corner of the lock bar instead of more deeply in. I'm not sure if that's it. However, that being said, another pro tip, the way you launch this with the thumb studs is straight up, not out. If you go out, you're more prone to missing it or failing it. If you just push that straight up, you will get a solid launch and lock up almost every time. Again, if you've got the real bronze washer one, it's going to take a lot more effort for that to happen. Sharpening choil, pretty true to the original. You can get a sharpening or two in here. You can see that, the plunge line does go down almost to where the blade is cut, but you could easily get at least a couple of sharpenings on this thing, no problem. But it's true to the original, so what are you going to do about that? In terms of blade centering, I was very pleased to see this thing came just dead nuts center, so you got to love that in a $50 knockoff knife. Let's do a quick bit of cutting here just so you can see. This didn't actually come as sharp as I wanted. As I mentioned, the behind the edge measurements, it's a little thicker than a lot of the slicier knives that I have. It's not terrible, but to me that's a little bit more of tearing than cutting. It will cut, obviously. It's not terrible. But, I think I'll probably put this on the old work sharp and work that edge down a little bit. We'll do a little bit of cardboard. You can see, again, because the blade's a little thicker, it will certainly cut through it without problem. Takes a little bit more effort than maybe some of the slicier blades you might have. But listen, I'm just working around the house or the yard, and I think once I put a little slicier angle on this blade, this is going to be a champ. Yeah, there you go. Just wanted to let you see what that looked like as far as a little bit of cutting tests. The ergos, feels good in the hand. One thing I would point out, because that lock bar here is pointed, me see if I can get the light on this right. You can see how this sticks out and is pointed. If you don't get your first finger to the right of that, you have to really choke up to the top. Otherwise, if that first finger is riding on that lock bar release there, that can get painful. If you're doing heavy, strong grip push cuts type of thing, or you're just really bearing down on this thing, the point of that lock bar can dig into you. Now again, you just choke up and you get past that, no problem. From there, the ergos are great. The jimping is great here. You've got the harpoon for your thumb. We already talked about the other harpoon down here for your forefinger there. Easy enough to pinch cut. So overall, I'm going to say pretty good on the ergos. Big differences between this thing and the original is going to be obviously the steel. No idea what this one is. Perhaps a VG10 if some of the other listings are to be believed. The bearings, double row ceramic bearings. I love those, but that's not what the original comes with. The clip, again, I prefer it being 50-50, but that's not original here. The over travel stop, I don't really have a problem with that. I would have loved to seen it carved out, but that certainly would have added probably to the cost of this knife. At least they got the logo on there. The jimping is the other thing, as I mentioned, that's a little bit different from the original. So let's bring this thing home, my overall impressions. I have some knives in my collection that I just collect because of the unique design, the style, or the significance of that particular knife to the whole industry and how popular it was. And so some of those I just collect to put in the box and take out from time to time, play with, fidget with, maybe carry here or there, but they're not really intended to be a real user knife. This one is not that. This is definitely a knife that I find myself going back to over and over again and wanting to carry in my pocket. Even though it's not the sliciest blade by any means, it's a really good, strong, heavy-duty knife. I love the look, the feel, the design of it. The size of it is good. The weight is a little on the top side with 5 ounces, but it's not unbearable. I probably wouldn't carry this in gym shorts, but I'm probably not going to do any kind of hard work in gym shorts either. So I like this. I'm definitely carrying it. It's sturdy. It fits my hand well. I love the bearings, obviously, being fidget friendly. This is one you definitely don't have to worry about taking out and beating up, even losing. I mean, I don't want to lose $50, but I sure as heck don't want to lose $500. And so I don't have to worry about that. If it gets, some nicks and scratches and dings and I need to pry a staple out of something, I'm not going to cry if I do any damage to this. So overall, in my book, this thing is a winner. Again, there are links down below if you want to go and check this thing out for yourself. Otherwise, if you would please, then again, below, hit that subscribe and notification bell. You're really helping me out. I swear, you guys, that does make a difference for me. Give me a thumbs up if you think I did okay. Thumbs down if not, but let me know what I did. I'll try to get better. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for sticking with me here today. I appreciate you, and I will see you soon. Take care.